What up, guys? James from Bolt Bros here on the eve of round one of the 2025 NFL draft. Putting together a little bit what the conversations are, talking about premium positions the Chargers fans would like to get at 22. Some of the GMs got some ideas of where they want to go. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but also let's see what AI thinks we're going to do too. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Bolt Bros, let's go.
Bolt Bros.
All right, guys. Once again, appreciate all the love and support. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you've not. I appreciate all the love and support. And in the comments below, what is your thoughts that we're going to do at 22? Now, it is an interesting draft. Now, once again, there is a lot of ideas of what potentially could happen. We have no idea what's going to happen. AI does not know what we're going to do either. But at the same side, I think it's very interesting to see what is happening around the NFL in certain teams, GMs talking about positions that they would love to draft in front of the Chargers. So it kind of takes a little bit of players off the board for the Chargers at 22, but also gives you a bigger idea of what we potentially can get at 22. So obviously, if we stay at 22, we got a chance at a really good, solid player. I would say probably the second tier of premium players per se at 22. But also, you got a chance to go after a really, really good player that could end up being one of the top players in that position. So, going back to our mock draft that we had during Sunday, I really wanted to go after an edge. I chose Mike Green as a defensive end, which I think realistically could be there. Now, once again, character issues, things that are kind of off-field issues are something that could potentially stray the Chargers a little bit away from him. But I think that defensive line could be the focus. But let's just kind of talk about some of the GMs out there and some of these picks that are ahead of the Chargers. Now, once again, this is not necessarily Chargers news, but at the same side, I'm trying to decipher what the heck is going on out there, what GMs are saying with their picks ahead of the Chargers. Now, the Colts are at pick 14. Chris Ballard talked about, hey, looking for a hard-to-find three-down tight end. So think about that. They want a weapon. They want a tight end who's a three-down guy. Now, if you think, okay, two guys that are in the draft that are very, very high up there that a lot of people really want, well, you got Tyler Warren and you got Colston Loveland. Now, there's a great chance that Tyler Warren could get picked up, say by the Jets, say by even to say the Saints or the Panthers to add another weapon to their team. Or even to say, I've even seen the Bears even talking about picking up a tight end, which would be an interesting one to be able to see with, Cole Kmet being over there and who's a pretty good weapon in itself. Or even to say, the Niners. I mean, the Niners are kind of aging a little bit with George Kittle and everything too. You never know. But basically at 14, let's say Tyler Warren does get there. All right, cool. Now you got basically Tyler Warren as your tight end for the future. Then you kind of start thinking ahead at that point. All right, who's after basically the Colts? Well, who would want a tight end at that point? Falcons wouldn't. Cardinals won't. Bengals have obviously been one that's been looking at quite a bit with a tight end. And, I'll talk a little bit more about the AI side of things too. That could potentially, be the right choice that then to go get Colston Loveland. So personally, my opinion, based upon what Chris Ballard's saying here, he's going tight end. And he's going to choose it's going to be Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, whoever it might be, whoever might go high on Tyler Warren. It's a possibility that could be at 9 for the Jets. But personally, I don't think Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren will be there at pick 22 is what I'm pretty much saying there. So I don't think that's going to be a possibility. I don't think the Chargers will go after a tight end for their first pick, in my opinion. So moving on. Yeah, boo, Raiders. We don't like the Raiders or anything like that. But John Spytek is a believer in taking a running back high in draft. Obviously think about kind of what they did over where John Spytek came from the Bucks. They got a pretty good running back situation over there, right? I mean, they had showed a phenomenal ability to be able to go after running backs and produce very high. Now, with the Raiders, obviously Geno Smith being there, Pete Carroll, first thing I thought of when I read this article, I was like, okay, like Pete Carroll had Marshawn Lynch in his heydays. He did a very good job with them and everything too. But you got a potential guy with an Ashton Genty. You know, even in this article that Ryan McFadden wrote out that includes Boise State, Ashton Genty has been linked to the organization. I totally could see that happening. Ashton Genty will basically be there at 9. I think it's it's at 7 or 6 for these. Wait, what draft are they? It's 6. Yeah. They're at 6. Ashton Genty should be there for him. So for them to go after that and get kind of a guy that I believe could be a franchise type player, a guy that could be an absolute dominator all around, Ashton Genty will be there for him. I would not be surprised if John Spytek, based upon his words here, he will go for basically Ashton Genty. So now that leaves Omarion Hampton at that point. Now, Omarion Hampton has kind of been linked to the Chargers. Chargers have met with him too. I believe there has been some conversations about him with the Chargers. I know Ashton Genty did meet with the Chargers too. Omarion Hampton would be very, very fitting to what the Chargers want. A big physical kind of back, a guy that could basically go out there and get those tough yards for you. Could be a long-term type perspective type situation for him. But I don't really think that's going to be a possibility. And reason being, and just alone with the Broncos, just a couple picks ahead of us, they will probably go running back, in my opinion. I think they will choose Omarion Hampton. I mean, I've seen some of the counter of my idea that they'll go a lot more defense, but at the same side, I think that's not going to happen. So personally, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to have a top tight end, or at least the top 2 tight ends, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland at 22. I don't think that we're going to be able to see top 2 running backs, Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton, at 22. So I do not think those are going to be positions that we're going to focus on and have the ability to get those 2 players. Once again, very deep tight end draft, very deep running back draft. I think that we could be fine. Even if we want to go in those 2 positions at round 2 or 3, we'll be able to get a quality player, bottom line. So the way that I kind of view it as is, you know, we look at after the pick 6 of the Raiders and start going down all the way to 22. This is the where I view it as. And I'm going to use a little bit of an AI on this too. Based upon what I'm seeing with the Jets, they're going to end up going with 2 different players based upon Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, and Gronk. They said that they will be going tackle, which makes a lot of sense. They want to build that line up, make sure that line's very, very strong. They said it's Amron Emembu and Kelvin Banks Jr. They also did say ChatGPT said Tetaro McMillan, and even Meta AI said that Ashton Genty is going to slide to them. I do not think that's going to be a position of need for the Jets. I think the Jets have a very good running back room as is. I don't think that's a possibility. Now going to Carolina, this is one that I feel that they could potentially go with a tight end with like a Tyler Warren, in my opinion. That's my opinion on this one. The AI says it's actually going to say 2 different type of edge players and 2 different wide receivers. So Tetaro McMillan potentially, or Emeka Egbuka. I mean, once again, I think it's a good thing to build out that wide receiver group just a little bit further. They do have a pretty good depth at this point. For wide receivers, I'm not sure about the wide receivers, in my opinion, for them. But I could totally see them going after edge, which is what they've said. Mikael Williams, edge from Georgia, and James Pierce Jr., edge from Tennessee. So totally possible. Now with pick 9 with the Saints, I think it's an interesting one because once again, you got BS over there. You got Kellen Moore over there, offensive-minded head coach now. They don't really have a quarterback by any means. I mean, Shadir Sanders was pretty high pick at 9. Now it seems like that is sliding for Shadir Sanders now at 9. It sounds like it might be even more back-end draft, and I've been seeing some mock drafts of him getting into the 2nd round. So I do think they do need a quarterback. Obviously, Derek Carr is gone, or at least it sounds like that with his shoulder situation. But, you know, AI is basically saying Tyler Warren potential here, Will Campbell, offensive tackle, Jackson Dart at 9, which would be a stunner for them. But then also ChatGPT does say Shadir Sanders too. So interesting. The Bears are one that I've kind of looked at, and it's weird to say that I've seen that some tight end potential there. I think Cole Kmet's a very good tight end there. I don't think it's a necessary need for the Bears, but I do think that they will, if there is a running back there, they will go with a running back there. Omarion Hampton would be kind of an interesting pickup for him there, but I do think what they're saying in the AI side of things, Jalen Walker, linebacker, build up that defense as much as you can. Get those Bears nasty once again. Shamir Stewart, Shamar Stewart, excuse me, edge from Texas A&M. They do actually show a wide receiver, which I think is an interesting one at Tetero and McMillan. Once again, a position of need for the Chargers is wide receiver, and there's a lot of wide receivers that potentially could get picked up. Tetero and McMillan, obviously, Travis Hunter's not even in a conversation for us by any means. But at the same side, then you go to Matthew Golden as a potential too. And then from that point, I feel like it's a sliding scale on wide receivers. I don't personally think that wide receivers is going to be a big, focus for this team, for the Chargers. By my opinion, I think a lot of the good wide receivers will be picked up by them, but who knows? We'll see. Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle, is another pick for the Bears. Once again, they did a great job of building that O-line. I think that would be a great pickup for them. Just make sure, solidify that O-line for Caleb Williams. Allow him to be able to have a run game behind him and allow him to be able to throw the ball. Now, going to pick 11 for the Niners, they got a lot of things moving along with that team. I personally think it'd be interesting if one of those tight ends do get there. Colston Loveland, I think, potentially could be there at 11. Kittle's getting older. They basically don't have, a little bit less on the wide receiver side of things. I mean, things are a little bit shaky there with Ayuk. Obviously, they have moved on from wide receivers, traded off guys to the Commanders with Deebo Samuels. Wide receiver makes a lot more sense to me at 11 for them, but also at the same side, they're aging as a team. I think a tackle could be a great idea. Will Johnson has been slated there, Tetero McMillan, Armin Mimbu, and Luther Burton, who has actually been climbing the boards. It'd be crazy to be able to see him at 11. Now, Dallas Cowboys have met with a lot of wide receivers, Matthew Golden being one of those. Pair him with a CeeDee Lamb. That's, I think, would be a home run situation for him, for Dak there to be able to grow with him. What AI is basically saying, Kelvin Banks Jr., Jahad Campbell, linebacker of Alabama. That would be awesome to see. And I know that they're getting older at that position. I think that would be a great addition to the team. Ashton Jeanty at 12. I do not see that happening, in my opinion, but I know the connections there. He has met with Jerry Jones. And Tyler Booker, offensive guard, too. I could totally see that happening. Build the O-line, strengthen it up as much as you possibly can. Pick 13. Dolphins are in a big, weird kind of rebuild situation, in my opinion, there. Matthew Golden is one that's slated there. Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia, which would be a big pickup for them. Or Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, which was one of Kyle's picks, actually, at 22. Interesting thing about Walter Nolan, I've seen him within these drafts where it's up and down of where he's going to get picked up, but I always felt him like he's a top 10 type guy. Now, Colts-wise, I've already talked about him. I think they're going to get a tight end. I think it's going to be either Colston Loveland or Warren. AI tells me that same thing, too. Walter Nolan also slated there. Nick Emewori, safety in South Carolina. I think that would be an awesome pick for them. Nick Emewori is one of those guys that could just be moved around. He's a Derwin James type guy, so I think he'd be solid, too. But I do feel like, based upon what Chris Ballard said, I think the Colts will go tight end. Now, Falcons-wise, pick 15. They need some edge help. They need to get ability to create pressure. They do need to go very heavy in the draft in defense. AI has only said Donovan Jackson for O-line, which I think could be a good choice for him. Obviously, protect your quarterback, protect your young quarterback at this point now, too. But AI also says Jalen Walker, linebacker edge in Georgia. Keep the Georgia boy in Georgia. Abdul Carter, which would be ridiculous to see him at 15. That would be not a possibility, in my opinion. But Mike Green, I've seen that quite a bit of times at him at 15 for edge. They need to get more pressure there. Obviously, they got Morgan Fox over there, too, who's a guy who create a lot more pressure. But adding another young guy there would be great. Pick 16, Arizona Cardinals. I think the thing with them is that they are a defensive-minded head coach. They did actually outperform, I think, what they did last year. I think they did a good job. I think it's just a little bit more that they need on the defensive side, which they have slated in AI, Walter Nolan. I don't think Walter Nolan's going to be able to find his way at 22. Based upon what I'm seeing with AI, they did put Donovan Jackson, Ohio State guard, as a possibility. Obviously, you need as much help there. I think they have a great situation running back, tight end, and wide receiver at this point. So Mikael Williams, edge Georgia. James Pierce Jr., edge in Tennessee. It's copycat league, guys. Build your D-lines, get to the quarterbacks, just exactly like what the Eagles did against the Chiefs. Pick 17, Bengals. I think this is where the point that I do not think that a tight end will be able to land regardless at this point. Colston Loveland, I think, will get picked up. by the Bengals. I think it makes a ton of sense. Add another weapon to them. T. Higgins, you obviously got Jamar Chase, and then you add another guy that could just be another weapon to this team. I think it'd be a phenomenal pickup for them. But once again, they are getting very, very slim on budget. So you go and start saying, hey, you got to build up that defense. You got to get impact players. So they also slated Mike Green, Kenneth Grant, which is a guy I would love to be able to see at 22, and Jalen Walker edge too. So it makes a lot of sense there too, especially the whole thing's happening there with Trey Hendrickson. At 18, you look at what the Seahawks have going on there. I personally put in my mind Nick Emeka would be an absolute perfect pick, with which AI, Meta AI, basically said that that's what they would do. Reason being is that I think that Mike McDonald would love to be able to have that, Derwin James type guy, that guy basically that would be like that, their tight end the safety that they had over at the Ravens too, Kyle Hampton. Have him there. It would essentially be that guy for his defense. I think it would be a great pickup for Seahawks to be able to get Nick Emeka there. Now, also they put in Malachi Starks there too. So once again, safety is where this is going to be this pick, in my opinion, for the Seahawks. They did also put Tyler Booker, offensive guard, and Jahdae Barron, I believe, cornerback from Texas. So they're thinking backfield for their defense, in my opinion. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think Nick Emeka would be a plug-and-play guy for them. Pick 19, Buccaneers. There's been a lot of talk about defense with these guys. Build up that defense as much as you possibly can. And AI says that too. 3 different picks at James Pierce, Jalen Walker, Shamir Stewart. And they also did have 1 for Emeka Egbuka. I don't think that's going to be the pick for them for wide receiver. Defense is going to be the play for them. Broncos at 20, James Pierce Jr., Amari Hampton. Once again, I feel like that's where they're going to go. That fits well for them. I don't think Amari Hampton will fall to us at 22. Interesting thing, it does show that Hampton gets picked twice in AI based, and then Matthew Golden finds his way at 20. Now, 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an interesting one. I'm just going to kind of give my little idea and spiel on this. Do I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to get there? Sure, he was throwing with DK Metcalf, but at the same side, if you're not choosing him now, when are you going to choose him now? Ever? Or is he going to come into camp with them? Camps are starting to happen for all these teams now. Get out there if you're going to be able to want to be on the Steelers. Now, AI is basically saying that Jackson Dart goes there at 21 for them. Obviously, they could look at that even after Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, he's later in his career. Who knows? They did chose 2 different quarterbacks, Jalen Monroe and then Jackson Dart, but they also did chose Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, because of obviously aging defensive line there too. So I could see that being the case there too. So bottom line, there's a lot of things happening out there of what the heck's going to be happening and who's going to be available for pick 22. Now, even with the Steelers going back to that, Jihad Campbell, linebacker at Alabama, was chosen too. So, and who knows what's going on with the TJ Watt situation. Now, I'm going to move on to what AI has told us. Now, I personally feel we got to go defensive line at this point. There's obviously been a lot of those guys, Ashton Genty, your Martin Hamptons, Colston Loveland, all those guys have been picked up too. But once again, I've been looking at a lot with the defensive line. Now, this is what AI has said the Chargers are going to pick. Amari Hampton, Donovan Ezaruku, I can never say his name, edge, Boston College, Colston Loveland, tight end, and Ashton Genty. Now, I don't think that there's a possibility, and that would be a stunning turn of events to get Ashton Genty at 22. Colston Loveland, there's a possibility that I just don't feel like it's going to get further past the Colts. Probably the Bengals, I think, will go tight end too, because they would want to be able to add more weapons. But once again, they are very defensive needy at this point, and they might want to be able to get more of a impactful defensive line and go more defensive line, edge, or defensive tackle. Now, I see the Chargers really going with that, with the Donovan Ezaraku, I think is how you pronounce his name, edge at Boston College. Add more juice. Reason being is because the Chargers are looking at, 1 year with only Khalil Mack. You got basically Tulitu Pelotu. Then you also basically don't really have as much depth behind that at this point too, that you got to start thinking for the position of the future too. So I think that's going to be a very, very possible pick at 22 for this team. I had Mike Green in my mock draft. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the personality things and in the off-field situations there too that might push away the Chargers from him. But I've always kind of felt like he should be kind of a Raven or a Charger kind of thing because I feel like the philosophies are very similar. Now, edge position for us is, Bud Dupree as the third guy, and then it's kind of drops off from that point. I think we will need to go with a defensive lineman. Now, once again, I'm a giant fan of going with a big body middle defensive lineman kind of guy with, say, a Kenneth Grant. I think it would be a great situation. Kyle's draft pick had basically even to say Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Mississippi. I mean, even in AI world, it's basically keeping us at 16 that he won't get past basically the Cardinals. So personally, my opinion of what's going to happen is I have no idea, but I feel like it's going to go with edge or defensive line in round one. I really, really, really would love to be able to see a edge player like what we have here with Donovan Ezraku. I'm going to butcher that name for the rest of my life. Or you're going to end up going with like a Kenneth Grant, who would be a perfect plug and play type player for this team. Obviously, he knows the Michigan philosophy. He knows the defense. It would be an instant upgrade at that point. Now, some people have said that that's been a very filled out group. Yes, I get it. But at the same side, it's a group that is needed for the long haul with this team. And once again, we have gotten burned late in the season through not having a good run defense. So I have no idea what's going to happen. But once again, based upon what I'm seeing from GMs, some of these top positions, running back and also tight end, I do not think that we're going to have those guys that the Chargers would love to have. Amarian Hampton, obviously Ashton Genty, your Colston Loveland, your Tyler Warrens. I don't think you're going to be there. So once again, I think the Chargers are going to go with best player available, obviously. But I think at the same side, we're going to end up going with defensive line, in my opinion. But there's a chance that a wide receiver could find his way. I think the Tetero McMillan conversation has found a little bit of a way out there. Emeka Egbuka has been a guy that's been slated to be able to go to the Chargers too. Matthew Golden has been another one too. But I personally feel, based upon what we did last year, we went with a skill-based player in the offensive line with Joe Alt, and then we end up getting a great tight end in round two. And I think personally, if they want to go with a tight end or a wide receiver, round two's got some very, very quality picks. So I'd like to be able to hear from your thoughts. Tell me about what these GMs are kind of telling us. Will they be going with those premium positions at running back, tight end in round one? And then what are your thoughts about the AI picks? Do you feel this is very, very accurate or not? So once again, love to be able to hear from you in the comments below. James from Bolt Bros. Let's go.
Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching Bolt Bros podcast. Let's go.
Charged up, Bolt Bros on the night.